What's happening, everybody? Thanks for tuning back into the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Was a bit of a break or a black sabbatical, as Soundgarden guitarist Kim Thayil once referred to it as, so thanks for that, Kim. Drummer Chris Enriquez joins us today and talks about his experience writing and recording the new Spotlights album, Alchemy of the Dead, the long process of actually playing and now recording with Julie Christmas, the upcoming documentary aptly named after his 90s emo band On the Might of Princes, and one hazy party-filled night with yours truly involving flips, a little off-roading, and some gut torture and hot sauce. Today's episode is sponsored by my man Carson Gant, a.k.a. OneUpLoops.com. Carson and his team spent an unbelievable amount of time recording over 400,000 shaker, tambourine, and hi-hat loops at every possible tempo in multiple fields with incredible mics and outboard gear for you to pick and choose. It's organized for you to find exactly what you need with just a few clicks, and everything feels and sounds incredible. You can sign up for free to check it out and gain full access to all 400,000 loops starting at just $5.99 a month. No download limits. Whatever you want, whenever you want. New loops, one-shots, and drum breaks are being added weekly, so check it out at oneuploops.com. Crash Bang Boom Podcast can be found on iTunes Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and Amazon Music Podcasts, to name a few. Feel free to check out any of the previous 260-plus episodes and give me a like, a subscription, and or a positive review, as it would be appreciated. Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
Yes! Chris Enriquez of Spotlights. What's happening, my dude? We're back in action. Good to see you.
We're back in action, post-pandemic, baby.
How
are you?
For real. You and I, last time I saw you, we had a post-pandemic hang and subsequent party on big-time rock and roll style that night after seeing Spotlights at the Earl in the East Atlanta Village. And, yeah, there was a little bit of off-road and some flips in the pool. Some adult beverages were had. It was a good goddamn time, man.
I felt like I was in if you remember, I said this to you the day after, I felt like I was in a Pantera VHS tape from like 1998 behind the scenes.
Right. Oh, yeah, I know. This is the one where they're launching beers up into the balcony and people are catching them, and they paid guys to drink salad dressing and eat an entire wedding cake, I think, if that's the one you're talking about. That's the one that I'm thinking of.
That's a good one. It was a mixture of that and like Wayne's World. And we even had a little Hot Ones experience in the kitchen where I tasted the last dab. Thank you for that.
Oh, you know what's hilarious? I forgot about that until you just mentioned it. But yeah, I do remember my mouth being on fire, and you as well. You were drinking, I don't know, maybe had some almond milk or something. You were trying to put the fire out. But God, we did Da Bomb. And that's the hottest one on the Hot Ones. Shout out to that Hot One show on YouTube. It's hilarious. But yeah, we had our own Hot Ones that night as well. That's true.
Yeah, I had the last dab, some kind of shots of stuff that I never had in my life, mixed with beer taste and tequila, I think.
Holy shit.
There was a lot going on there.
Woohoo! Congrats, by the way, on Alchemy of the Dead, man. I think it's a great record. Mario keeps sort of one-upping himself with the production and the sound of these records. And it's funny, man. I mean, the first time, I don't know if you and I ever talked about it, but the first time I saw Spotlights was they had just moved to Brooklyn, and I saw them at ABC No Rio, and we were playing like a matinee at ABC No Rio in the Lower East Side. And they went on, and I was like, who the fuck are these guys? You know, they were like a fully formed band.
Yeah.
With like an album out and merch and all this stuff. And I had never heard of them. And I've been a fan ever since then. So it's crazy to think of ABC No Rio up to this day, you know.
I was there. Yeah, I watched you play with Beast Modulus. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in the audience watching Spotlights because they had a different drummer,
right? And
that was a legendary venue too to be at. It's like a badge of honor that you guys got to christen the dingy ABC No Rio basement punk rock venue before it turned into whatever it's turned into, which maybe it's a bank now or something.
Probably a bank, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a crazy show because at that point in time, I was also a fan, and I knew them because they were playing a lot in Brooklyn, and St. Vitus owner Dave Castillo played Spotlights for me, and it resonated with me because I was always into bands like doing like spacey kind of groove-oriented shit.
Yeah.
I knew at that show that I was going to be filling in on drums, but what I didn't know is that I was going to be joining the band.
Yeah.
and already knew that they had the big Deftones Refused tour lined up, and so the next show after ABC No Rio, playing on the floor for them, was in New York, was at the Coney Island Amphitheater, which I did not play, but I was also there, and that was a huge jump, especially
Yeah, that's
for
insane.
bands from our scene. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck? That was crazy.
Wow, man. Tell me a little bit about getting into that recording. I know that Mario and Sarah are out in Pittsburgh. You're in Brooklyn. What was the process of sort of piecing that record together? Was it multiple sessions? Did you go down for a weekend? Did Mario kind of have programmed drums or just throw out ideas and then you record them and then all of the splice and editing and everything comes together to make not to say you're overly edited. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
It happens to the best of us in the modern age in which we live. So.
Totally. I mean, we have to acknowledge that for sure. I mean, like, there's some great live takes out there, but there's a lot of editing. We definitely took advantage of that, and I'm not ashamed to admit that, because we really wanted to try something different. And the process involved recording drums separately from the cymbals. So inevitably, there was a lot of stuff going on there.
There are certain cymbal accents where I was like, that's either a cymbal sample or they isolated that because it's such in a particular place and a no bleed of any other instrument. Cymbals sound a particular way. You can only get so much out of the mics, so that makes sense. But it's also that's tough. That's not the easy route to take either.
No, not at all. In fact, I think that it was almost like playing a video game in a way, because me and Mario were in the studio together. It was just the two of us when we were doing the drums. That's usually how it goes when we tracks anyway. So the tracks that I was playing along to were pre-recorded. So he had sent me demos, and there were drums that were collaborated on to some degree. So like, it was the first time that Mario had me send beats where he wrote riffs on top of some of the beats. So
okay.
Like, song Sunset Burial started out with a drum beat that I came up with in Brooklyn by myself, and then sent on like voice memo.
Yeah.
Texted it to him, and he didn't really love too many except that particular one. He was feeling that one. So that was the first time that we ever wrote a song like that, where it wasn't him either writing it with Sarah in some shape or form, or completely alone and just sending me a track, where I was actually feeding the ideas to birth a track, so that was really cool.
Right.
And then we had a couple other ones that we worked on together, which was also a first, where we were in a room and the two of us were sort of like, either I'd play a drum beat or he'd have a riff, or he left one day, I visited him, and him and Sarah left to go take care of something, and I stayed behind and just videotaped myself playing drums, like free form, not even with any sort of reference point in mind. And we kept maybe one or two of those that made it into song ideas.
Cool.
The other thing was that we also did some demos, me and him. So we did demo out like maybe 2 or 3 songs. One of them didn't make it, but like we took one part and kept it, and then the rest was sort of a mixture of stuff he came up with, and one very old song that him and Sarah came up with from like 8 years ago. And then we just sort of picked the best of what we thought would be a cohesive record. And that's sort of how Alchemy for the Dead, the track selection, took place. But all of the drums were tracked very particular. So like, you're either listening to drums and cymbals separate, or even to the point where there are different drum sets and cymbals entirely played on verses,
right,
and choruses, and some songs with 2 drums happening at the same time.
Crazy.
So really a lot going on there.
Yeah. Mario's wild, man. He's just such a talented guy, not only in the songwriting, performance, guitar, vocals, etc. aspect of Spotlights, but definitely on the producer, engineer, mixing side of it. He mixed a little 3-song EP for my Proficient Prototypes project, and then I know around the same time, I think he was playing extra guitar with Quicksand and Mix and Shiner or something like that, or do I have those? Do I have them?
It's the other way around.
Other way around. Playing guitar with Shiner, mixing Quicksand.
Doing sound for Quicksand, yeah,
Right.
live sound, yeah, crazy. He's, I when I mentioned the video game thing, I just realized they didn't explain that thought, but we were it was like playing a video game in the sense of like the drums would be done without cymbals, and then we would sit there and he would hit record, and then I would play the cymbals and then try to land everything where they should line up, and whenever it worked out, it was like we scored a point in a way, because we would start laughing. We weren't
right.
we were absolutely like laughing like every time, like we would hit playback and be like, holy shit, that was the right spot.
Nice.
I was just like cracking up,
That's awesome, man.
It was really funny in a weird way how it was done.
God, that sounds like quite a process then. Do you recall like how many times you had to go to Pittsburgh to track drums, or were you just up there for an extended amount of time?
So the first time when we wrote and demoed was like where we came up with like 3 or 4 ideas. That happened first, and then when I recorded, I came up and did the real recording all in like one trip. Might have been like 10 days. I'm not sure how many of the 10 days I actually was doing drums, but it was a nice chunk.
Yeah.
It wasn't as like, I don't want to sound like like overly confident here, but it wasn't as hard to nail as we probably thought, but it was definitely also not easy, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
There were parts that were straightforward, I think, when it came to like straightforward beats and just straight hi-hats and crashes, but then for more lively parts, that was challenging. Like, so like big fills and things that probably sound like freeform, those are still mostly done separately, which was probably the most challenging, like big heavy parts with like fills and shit.
Oh yeah.
But there was a couple parts that were played with not too many, but there were a couple parts that were played live, but like we're talking like maybe like a verse here or there.
Wow.
And then all the electronic sounding stuff, those are actually real drums.
Oh, cool. Just like reproduced.
Exactly. Like, lots of recording techniques, whether it's like nothing outside of the box, but, towel on snare.
Of course.
The use of duct tape.
Of course. Duct tape works in so many ways.
Yeah. So like some of the sounds on there where you hear electronic drums, quote unquote, that are like kind of dead or whatever, like trip hoppy sounding. Those are real drums and real cymbals and not samples.
That's awesome, man. Now, after y'all kind of wrap this record, it's time to put it out. And I guess I should revert back for a second. Was it on Love and Decay that Spotlight signed with Ipecac, Mike Patton's label? Was that the first record?
Seismic.
Seismic was. So this is the third one.
Third full length, yeah.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So they signed that third record out. Then it comes time to do some touring, one of which, of course, like I said, was the headlining tour where I caught up with y'all. But prior to that, y'all went out and did some shows with Mr. Bungle. So you got to tell me a little bit about that because, one, I'm just a Mr. Bungle fan, a Mike Patton fan, Trevor Dunn, Trace Bruance, and then, of course, you got Dave Lombardo on it, which is, it's a different thing than the original, but it is its own thing. And, my God, I mean, Dave Lombardo, it's funny. I've seen him 3 times, but never with Slayer or never with Mr. Bungle. I think I've seen him with Testament, Suicidal Tendencies, and Phantomos.
Damn.
But I've never actually I never saw him with Slayer.
Holy crap. I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, you've probably seen a lot of stuff that I haven't seen, like Pantera, which I've never seen.
Dude, you know what's crazy? I never saw Pantera back in the day.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
I was going to say maybe you had me on that one because luckily I did see Slayer with Lombardo more than a few times, but the tour was awesome. We had played in Brooklyn at Brooklyn Steel with that lineup of Bungle before the pandemic, and then we were announced to be on tour with Faith No More, and that tour never happened. And once Mike was able to feel comfortable going on tour again, Mike Patton, that is, we found out that we were given this opportunity to open for them and on the West Coast, and it was awesome. We did about 12 shows, if I'm not mistaken, and Lombardo is a huge inspiration. I'm not really so sure how I've taken any of his style into my own drumming, but I'm just a huge fan
of
of Slayer and watching him play, and like I love like something about his fills, the way he does them
Oh
for,
yeah, this
for
is
that kind of
amazing.
music. It's just
Yeah.
super cool. It was awesome to watch him play every night. He was also really cool to us and introduced himself, and I got to have a couple shots with him on the tour, a couple of drinks here and there, and
Nice.
got to try out his drum set,
Yeah.
and you know, he actually needed a cymbal one night because he broke one of his.
Oh yeah.
So I got to take some video of him playing, you know, a Slayer song of all things with one of my cymbals. So
Oh
that was
damn.
cool. Yeah, because they covered I think Hella Waits every night.
Wow.
But yeah, it was a trip. I mean, honestly, like between them and the Melvins, as a drummer, obviously I'm just sort of sitting here like pinching myself because I'm watching these guys do stuff that is so iconic. And when I say iconic, I mean it's like guys with these certain styles that like you can't replicate. So I'm just like feeling like totally humbled by the whole thing, you know?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you even mentioned, I guess I didn't really thought about it previously, but on one side, everyone that plays sort of slower, heavier music, be it doom, etc., for sure seems to point to Dale as an influence, and everyone that I would say plays faster music, whether it's directly or indirectly, no doubt one of the most universal influences in all of heavy music for sure is Dave fucking Lombardo.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, honestly, that's a really good point. And there was a cool interview that they both did together where they were interviewing each other. I think it was on like Consequence of Sound or something
Nice.
because of what you just said.
Yeah.
Because they're two metal or hard rock slash metal drummers that essentially changed the game. Like you said, like
Yeah.
every doom metal band and every freaking speed metal, whatever you want to call it, you know, these are kind of the dudes that
Yeah.
like made it, that did it the best
Yeah.
in you know, I would say of all time, probably, you know, until the genre sort of turned into pretty big things. I think those guys really were the kings of those styles when it came to drumming, you know.
Absolutely, that's so cool. And every interview that I've seen as well with Dave Lombardo, it seems he's just the nicest guy. And you know, I mean, when I interviewed Dale, Dale was a super nice, kind of funny guy. Like, it's funny how humble both of them seem to be, despite the kind of large influential wake that they've created, like we're talking about.
Really cool to see their gear too, because
Yeah.
their gear is not in my opinion like average gear, and I'm not talking about like size of drums or cymbals, just like Dave plays these like heavy ass Pisces Rude
I know he
cymbals.
always has. Yeah,
They're like fucking like dishes.
I know.
It's really nuts, and that's what he's playing on. Like when he's playing those fast thrash beats, it's
Totally.
really wild.
I mean, yeah, to the extent that it's part of his sound, that's always been kind of his sound, you know, so going
Yeah.
back all the way to Slayer and everything else. But it is a very specific sound for sure, man.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I wasn't sure how we were going to go off to the audience, but it seemed to work out. I think that people that are going to go watch anything Mike Patton related or see the Melvins probably are a little bit more open minded
Yeah.
to whatever is going to be thrown at them. So it was good. It was really good for us.
Right on. And then after that, y'all went out, did your headline and tour. About how many dates did y'all do? Because that was a pretty good run. I remember when I saw the dates, I was like, these guys are going to be exhausted after this.
I still am, honestly, because like we came back and took a few weeks off and then went out again to Canada, and I just got back on Sunday, so I really don't even feel like I've completely chilled out yet. But I was gone for over 65 days
Okay.
because I was out with Julie, and I never went home in between.
Oh my
So
God.
I just kind of like went straight from Europe with her to doing the States. So like I believe I was gone for like 65 or 68 days, and
Yeah.
I think I played 48 shows.
Damn,
I think I
dude.
played 48 shows with Spotlights, and then one show with Julie, and the rest were like that's like the time off.
Is that the longest run of shows that you've ever played?
Ever. I've never even left New York for that long in my life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Totally. Yeah, exactly. That's
um,
hilarious.
they left longer than that without me once. They did like a 72 date Melvin's tour where
Oh
I
my
played
God.
drum machine. I did like 13 of the shows, and the rest were all drum machine.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, really crazy. I wish I thought about you back then
I
because
know,
at the
right?
time could have used you.
That's funny, man. Did you
Yeah.
get sick at any point? Because I mean, with between, I mean, I feel like nothing makes you sick faster than being exhausted, lack of sleep, and partying all the time, and being sweaty and in an AC and playing and exerting yourself. Like, did you manage to not get sick that whole Spotlights run?
Mario got sick for sure. For like the last part of it, like at least I feel like he was sick for at least 2 weeks, and so
Oh,
that
damn.
was. I felt possibly sick. Well, right in the beginning of the Bungle tour, and when I say possibly, it's like I felt like a little off and a little sick, but it's also like now that COVID has happened, it's like stuck in our heads whenever you cough or sneeze. So
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, but for the most part, I made it through, and I had an ongoing joke with my lady, which anybody that knows me from when I was having my sober days, I it's not like I'm out fucking doing drugs every night or anything. I definitely chilled out on that, but
Right.
I was drinking was never a big problem for me. It was really the hard stuff which I kicked, but
Yeah.
our little inside thing was like she'd be like, "Oh, are you hungover?" And I'd be like, "Honestly, I have no idea because I think I took 3 to 6 shots a day for the past, every time she would ask me like for the past 40 days, 50 days, 60 days." So like if I was hungover, I guess I just felt like shit every day. So it was hard to tell if it was what it.
Exactly. You were so consistently possibly hungover that you couldn't tell the difference.
No, it was exceptional after I left your house, but
Yeah. I remember when I woke up that day, I never said it before, but it was so true. I said, I am not going to meet this day with sobriety. And I mean, I woke up and was cracking beers. I was like, I'm just drinking this off. This is fucking, I feel just absolutely brutal right now.
it was worth it.
I was thinking about you being in a car going to to go to a show. I was like, God bless him, man. I hope it's a good one.
We had a blast, so it was worth it.
Oh my God, man. Well, dude, to backtrack for a second, you mentioned Julie being Julie Christmas. She's such an interesting character. I've also worked with her husband, Andrew Schneider, who you also worked with. I've also worked with Tom Tierney, who you were also working with that band. Good friends with Johnny Lamacchia Candiria, who was it was just like the ultimate like bro chacho moment. But when I saw the picture of y'all, I was like, what a bro assemblage this is. I love all these guys.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
So I guess tell me a little bit about the Julie Christmas thing. And if I recall right, y'all were supposed to go to Europe and do Roadburn, and then COVID happened. So then what was it, 2-year delay? Y'all went back and finally did it, right?
Whew. Absolutely, a 2 year delay, man. It was crazy. Like I started preparing for Roadburn when I was 39, and by the time I got out there to play it, I was 42. You know,
Holy shit.
it just sounds weird when you say it that way. I know
Yeah.
it's not that like, but like it's just that's how much time had passed. It was sort of a bizarre thing to live through. But like we were so to back up, Andrew Schneider, as you said, is a producer. He's done a million bands,
Oh, yeah.
Unsane, Cave In,
Yep.
Ken Mode.
Yep.
He recorded my old band, Han, who
Okay.
I know you're aware of.
Absolutely. Tom Tierney did a record with them too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's how I got on Andrew's radar. And then when it came time that Julie wanted to assemble a band and start playing again, he had me audition. And then the initial lineup had Johannes from Cult of Luna,
Yep.
Tom Tierney, who's still in the band, Tom Tierney.
Yep.
And before Lamacchia came in, we actually had Laura Pleasance from Kylesa was playing guitar.
Gotcha.
With Andrew on bass, Julie on vocals, of course.
Yep.
And then we started writing and recording material, and we were flying Laura and Johannes to the States and working at Spaceman, Tom's studio in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And we recorded at least 1 or 2 tracks with them as we were also preparing for Roadburn, which inevitably got postponed due to COVID and pandemic.
Yeah.
So we regrouped in about, I'm going to say 2020, most of 22, we were rehearsing constantly. And at this point in time, Lamacchia has now joined, and Laura it was no longer playing with us.
Yep.
And we released one single that she played on that's out on streaming right now. It's called "It's Not Enough."
Mm-hmm.
And then we did Roadburn, which was unfucking believable. We were second to last on the main stage with Deaf Heaven.
Wow.
It was massive.
What is the size of the crowds there at Roadburn?
I believe that room had to have been 4 to 5,000.
Okay.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
40, maybe 4,500 people or something like that.
Yeah.
So, it's very niche. We're not talking about like 20,000, 30,000 people.
Yeah.
It's not Reading Festival or however many people go to that. But for Roadburn, it's a pretty rad thing because they have it's 3 days. The main stage is somewhere between 4 or 5,000 people. And while that's happening, there are smaller stages that are, one of the stages I think is like 1,500 people, and then the other stage or two are less than that. Maybe we're talking 5 to 800 people.
Wow.
So you have all these people sort of rotating and going back and forth, and there's overlap between bands and stuff. So it's a small town and it seems packed, but it's really, probably talking about like 8 or 10,000 people all hanging out in one area at once, sort of like going back and forth from stages.
Killer. Did you see any cool bands while you were there?
Yeah. God damn it. I mean, I saw Deaf Heaven do. It was a lot of Sunbather material because it was an anniversary, which I know they're celebrating this year. I think it's a 10-year anniversary, and then there was a lot of good stuff there because I saw a lot of like industrial and goth stuff. I saw some like new metal stuff. I had a little bit of something for everybody, but Deaf Heaven was obviously like kind of like the most memorable one because they went on right after us, and I was like standing right there, just like, oh shit, this is sick.
Roadburn goes down in Germany?
Tilburg, the Netherlands.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been to that part of Europe. I've heard that between like Finland and just the Scandinavian area that it's like super expensive. Did you find that? Did you venture out at some point?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like it was reasonably priced compared to New York in terms of getting out and doing food and drinks. I mean, anything
Right.
is, but
Of course, that's
yeah.
hilarious. Yeah.
But what's funny is it literally was like being in Brooklyn, because we were running into so many people from Brooklyn. I'm not
Totally.
kidding. Like everywhere you're running into people from Brooklyn, like
Right.
walking around.
That's
Ridiculous.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Tell me a little bit about this hardcore band. And are you fronting that band? Are you playing guitar and singing in that one?
So I have Total Meltdown is a hardcore band that I play guitar in, and then Light Tower is a band that I sing and play guitar in.
Okay. All right. You got a lot of irons in the fire, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Hey, man, if you could juggle it and keep everybody semi-happy, then hell, more power to you.
ADHD, baby.
Hey, it's got to work for you one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. So Total Meltdown. All of this stuff, by the way, is all pandemic related. So
Yeah.
So when the pandemic happened, I was feeling kind of helpless, I guess, like everyone else. But in my world, like somebody that's so out there, when I go out, I'm at shows or parties or just I just really embrace the scene and the opportunities to like coexist with the community. So I thrive on going out and hanging out with people and just being around. So like basically like the pandemic had caused me to learn how to record at home and get a microphone, and I have guitars and basses and all sorts of shit, but I never knew how to like actually record, GarageBand. I didn't even know how to use that. So I just sat here and I wrote and recorded music. Some of it was melodic shit that I was singing and playing guitar on. So that was what turned into Light Tower, which now I have a EP out on Iodine Recordings and a live band that I play with. And then
Nice.
Total Meltdown was the real aggressive shit that I was writing, and it kind of a homage to sort of the Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front and Leeway and all that hardcore stuff that's also in my blood that I don't really get an opportunity to kind of like inject that into any of the types of bands that I've normally played in, and it is a huge part of my life, that style of music. So
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, tell me a little bit about this On the Might of Princes. Not only just sort of the history of the band, And then now we're looking at this documentary, sort of filling the blanks there, because that was probably before my time. About what era are we talking about when you were doing that?
Yeah, so On the Might of Princes was a band from 1997, actively from 1997 to 2004.
Okay.
And then we did reunions every so often until 2012. And then my singer passed away in 2013. So, we're a band from Long Island, New York.
Yep.
And, our sort of story started in 97. So I was not the original drummer. I joined on the second record, but the first 2 years, the band had a different drummer, and they were doing kind of like something similar to Sunny Day Real Estate.
Yeah.
That nature of sort of, what we now sort of know to be emo, I guess, but
Sure.
at the time, was sort of just whatever, like
Yeah.
indie rock.
Yeah.
And where we're from, there wasn't really much of that going on. On Long Island, we had a lot of hardcore and sort of pop punk and, whatever, like it was just not really common for a band of our style at the time to be out and about. I came to discover this band and ultimately joined, not unlike Spotlights, a very similar situation. Like I'd seen the band, I was a fan, and then I ended up joining about 2 years in.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in time, we're touring quite a bit, and bands that opened up for us at this point would have been like Taking Back Sunday, Coheed and Cambria, Brand New. A lot of the bands that sort of became these ginormous, arena, stadium, whatever acts.
Right.
Oftentimes we would also find ourselves playing dive bars and not knowing who was on the bill. And sometimes it would be Fall Out Boy or somebody, a lot of the people that we were sharing stages with, ended up being these sort of ginormous genre defining bands for emo or whatever.
Yeah.
We basically like had done a lot of those shows, and then got signed to Revelation Records, put out an LP that was our third record. We eventually went to Europe and broke up there because we just had a plethora of problems throughout the time that we were together. For me, I was 19 when I joined and 23 or 24 when we broke up.
Yeah.
I was super young at this point. We basically did a series of reunion shows, and our singer passed away of a heart attack at like 35.
Oh, damn.
In 2013.
Yeah.
And there was just a lot of crazy shit. We had major labels trying to sign us. There was like a big bidding war at one point between Victory Records and God, there were so many, but it was a lot of those labels that were around during the early 2000s that ended up signing Thursday and, the bands that mentioned earlier.
Right.
We were on a lot of these like crazy festivals back then that are in the movie, like where, we were playing festivals like Hellfest and opening up for everyone from Mastodon to the Misfits. And then like in between, there might be like My Chemical Romance. And it was like, this is a time period where festivals are real mixed, and some of these bands are on their way to becoming massive artists overnight. And we kind of felt like we were almost like the Anvil, if you've seen that movie. Like we kind of felt like we were left in the dust, but also kind of because we were just reckless and irresponsible. We had almost died in a car accident where we flipped over and drove off of a cliff.
What, really?
Yeah, that's
God
a true
damn.
story. We just had a lot of tumultuous shit happen to us. So the movie isn't to like sensationalize that, but I think it's to sort of tell our story about a band who was around, kind of like Anvil. And in their story, they kind of talk about how they played Donington with like, Motley Crue and fucking Bon Jovi and whoever else was on that show. And they did all this great shit and everyone knew who they were, but they didn't become the band selling out Barclays like a lot of the bands that we came up with ended up sort of getting to that point.
Right.
We kind of also realized during the pandemic that there was still an interest in our history, because we did a 20-year anniversary record of the album that I played on, Where You Are, Where You Want to Be, and it sold out very quickly. Several units of variants were selling out back to back. So then we would do another pressing and another pressing. And then our final record, Sirens, we did a 20-year anniversary of that, just to give you an idea of how old these records are now.
Right.
And we found great success with that as well. And all of those reunions we did, they were always surprising because we were a basement band at first. We were playing lots of VFW halls, lots of basements, lots of very empty venues. And then it went from that to, huge European festivals, opening for bands at Irving Plaza. And then our last show was sold out at St. Vitus. So we recognize that the genre seems to be very relevant today. And there's a lot of curiosity of the bands that helped sort of cultivate that sound. And, we felt like the interest inspired us to want to tell our story. And the movie is going to be at Nighthawk in Brooklyn, and it's sold out today, 3.5 hours.
Awesome.
Crazy. It's Thursday, September 28th. At 7 p.m.
Okay.
And we're gonna figure out streaming. I don't know if it's gonna be on Amazon, but we're just trying to figure out where. And Mario co-directed the film with me.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're just sort of like always, finding ways to work together on something.
Funny.
So
what about is the duration of the film?
It's a 90-minute film.
Gotcha.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And we got some really good quotes from people that are in active bands today, giving us some street cred for those that are like, who is this band and why am I watching this?
Right,
What I
exactly.
mean? Because there's a lot more people out there that are probably going to be like, who's this band and why is there a movie about them? And so I felt the same way when I saw the Anvil movie, which is why I always kind of go back to that, because I was like, I've never heard of these guys. You know what I mean?
Right. That's funny, man. Well, damn, outside of just all this music, the music happenings that you got going on and then this documentary, is there anything going on later in the year that you got happening or look forward to that you can even talk about?
Man, well, so we Spotlights just got added to a tour that is taking place in November, and it starts in the Midwest and goes through goes through the East Coast, and it's with a band that I can't say, but it's definitely a band that people will be excited about, and I think that's going to be a great way for us to kind of cap off the year of promoting the album, and on a high note. So
Awesome.
it'll be cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh God, Julie Christmas is playing Damnation Festival, Manchester, England on November 4th with Electric Wizard. Oh God, Julie Christmas is playing Damnation Festival.
Damn, dude. Keeping the calendar locked. I love it.
Yeah, man. Well, fucking if you come up, I'll make sure that we find more things to do, because we partied up in your neighborhood. Now you got to come back here and let me host you.
It's a little bit easier to get away with it out in the country when there's no police anywhere,
It made me wish that we partied more when you were here, but I was like, I was on the sober train for the last few years that you were still living here.
Yeah. Oh my God, man. Right on. Well, Chris, it was great talking to you. Always fun hanging, man. Good luck with the rest of the year. It sounds like you got no shortage of stuff happening. And yeah, man, best of luck. We'll catch up soon, my dude.
I love you, brother.
Yeah, man. Good seeing you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. That does it for this one. Thanks to Chris for rapping. Check out Alchemy of the Dead from Spotlights. And for you New York peeps, be on the lookout for the On the Might of Prince's documentary that Chris and Mario from Spotlights worked on. We'll catch you on the next one. Crash, bang, boom.